I'm not even gonna lie to you. This is one of those moments where you can feel that something big is about to change with this team. And it's not just about one decision, it's about everything happening at the same time. Because after missing the playoffs for the first time in years, the Leafs are heading into an offseason that could completely reshape the franchise from top to bottom. We're talking about major decisions involving the front office, the future of guys like Austin Matthews and Morgan Rielly, and even the direction of the entire roster, while at the same time there's still real uncertainty around what's happening behind the bench, with Craig Berube saying he expects to be back but not actually having any confirmation from management, which just adds even more tension to everything going on. And when you put all of that together with what's coming next, another major storyline that could directly impact how this team builds moving forward, you start to realize that this isn't just an offseason. This might be the moment that defines the next era of Leafs hockey. So stick with me, because what's coming next might surprise a lot of people. And hey, if you're riding with the Leafs no matter what, hit that like button, subscribe, and help us get to 1,300 subscribers, because we're gonna be breaking all of this down together. Alright, so when you really take a step back and look at everything that's happening right now, this isn't just a bad season that the Leafs can brush off and fix with a couple of tweaks. This is the kind of moment that forces an organization to look in the mirror and question almost every part of its identity, because missing the playoffs for the first time in a decade doesn't just hurt. It exposes cracks that have probably been there for a while, but were easier to ignore when the team was still winning games. And that's why this offseason feels so different, because now the conversation isn't just about adding a piece here or there, it's about deciding what this team actually wants to be moving forward, starting with the front office, where the next GM and the overall structure are going to shape everything from roster decisions to long-term philosophy. And you can already feel how much weight that carries when you consider how directly it ties into the future of a player like Austin Matthews, who isn't just another star, he's the face of the franchise, and someone whose belief in the direction of the team could influence whether this group sticks together or starts to shift in a completely different direction. At the same time, there are ripple effects across the entire roster that you can't ignore, because when you hear that even someone like Morgan Rielly, a guy who has been part of this team for so long, could be pushed toward considering a fresh start elsewhere, it tells you that nothing is untouchable anymore, and that kind of uncertainty naturally spreads into other areas, like the goaltending situation, where having multiple options might sound like a luxury. But in reality, it creates pressure to make the right call, especially when this is one of the few areas where the team might be able to move pieces and reshape weaknesses elsewhere. And what really stands out to me is how this all connects back to something deeper than just talent. Because after a season like this, where expectations didn't just fall short but completely collapsed, the questions become more about leadership, accountability, and whether this group truly has what it takes to respond when things go wrong. Because we've seen too many stretches where the team just couldn't find that extra level when it mattered. And that's the kind of thing that no single trade or signing can fix overnight. Then you look behind the bench, and even that situation isn't fully settled, because Craig Berube openly said he expects to be back next season, but hasn't actually received any confirmation from management yet, which only reinforces the idea that the coaching decision is going to depend entirely on the new leadership structure that gets put in place. And when you have that level of uncertainty at so many levels of the organization, it becomes impossible to ignore that this is a true transition point. So when you connect all of these dots, the front office overhaul, the pressure on Matthews, the uncertainty around key veterans, the need to resolve the goalie situation, and even the open question about the coach, what you're really looking at is an offseason where every decision is going to carry long-term consequences. And as a fan, that creates this mix of cautious hope and real concern, because there is an opportunity here to finally reset things the right way. But at the same time, if these decisions don't land the way they need to, this could just as easily lead to even more frustration down the road. And the thing is, this is only part of the picture, because there's already another situation developing that could give us a much clearer idea of how aggressive this team is willing to be in reshaping itself. And that's where things start to get even more interesting. Now, when you shift into this second storyline, this is where things start to get really interesting, because we're not just talking about internal decisions anymore. We're talking about how this team might try to get creative to fix real holes in the roster. And one of the ideas gaining attention right now is the possibility of the Leafs going after a high-end KHL free agent, instead of relying only on the traditional NHL market. The name that's popping up here is Vitaly Pinchuk, a 24-year-old forward putting up serious numbers with Dynamo Minsk, And the reason this matters is because Toronto is in a very tricky spot this offseason, where they want to retool and get competitive again quickly, but at the same time they don't have a ton of assets to make big trades, and the free agent market itself isn't exactly loaded with game-changing talent, which forces them to look outside the usual routes if they want to add real impact to the lineup. And when you look at Pinchuk's profile, you can understand why this idea is getting traction, because we're talking about a big-bodied forward, around 6'3", producing at a high level with 31 goals and 66 points in 65 games, which on paper fits exactly what this team needs, especially if you think about the pressure currently sitting on Austin Matthews and John Tavares to carry the offense night after night without enough consistent support behind them. At the same time, and this is where I think every fan has to be honest, there is real risk here, because we've seen this story before where players dominate in the KHL but struggle to translate that success to the NHL. And the example of Maxim Tsiplakov is still fresh, a guy who had strong scoring numbers overseas but couldn't replicate that impact once he came over, which makes this kind of move feel like a calculated gamble rather than a guaranteed solution. So from a fan perspective, this is one of those situations where you can see both sides very clearly, because on one hand it's exciting to think about adding a younger, skilled forward who could potentially grow into a top 6 role and give this lineup a different dimension. But on the other hand, it also highlights the reality that the Leafs are being forced into more creative and uncertain strategies because of how limited their options are right now. And when you connect this with everything we talked about earlier, the front office changes, the pressure around Matthews, the uncertainty across the roster, even the fact that the coaching situation is still not fully settled with Berube expecting to return, but without any confirmation yet. What you start to see is a team that is searching for answers in multiple directions at the same time, which can either lead to a smart reset or create even more instability if those moves don't align properly. So overall, this combination of big-picture decisions and creative roster moves tells me that this is not a calm, controlled retool. This is a franchise at a crossroads trying to figure out how to stay competitive without fully tearing things down. And that's where the tension really comes from, because if these moves hit, there's a path back to relevance pretty quickly. But if they miss, this could easily turn into a deeper rebuild whether the organization wants it or not. And as a fan, that leaves you right in the middle of hope and concern, because you can see the opportunity for change, but you also know how thin the margin for error is right now, and that's exactly why this offseason feels so decisive for the future of this team. And when you step back and look at everything that's happening right now, this situation becomes a lot clearer, because this isn't just about one possible signing or one front office move. This is about a team that is trying to reinvent itself on the fly after a season that exposed real structural problems, and the fact that they are even considering moves like going after a KHL free agent shows just how much they understand that doing the same thing again is simply not going to be enough. At the same time, when you connect this with everything surrounding the core players and the front office decisions we talked about earlier, what you really see is a franchise standing at a crossroads where every single decision, from who they hire to run hockey operations to the type of players they bring in to support the core, is going to shape not just next season, but the entire direction of this team for the next few years. And as a fan, it's impossible not to feel that mix of cautious hope and real concern, because there is a path here where smart, bold moves could actually give this team new life and take pressure off guys like Matthews and Tavares. But there is also a very real scenario where these gambles don't pay off and the team ends up stuck in that same frustrating cycle that we've seen too many times before. So more than anything, what this news represents is urgency, because the margin for error is gone, the patience is gone, and now it's about whether this organization can finally make the right calls when it matters most. And that's why this offseason doesn't just feel important, it feels decisive. Now I want to hear from you. Do you actually like the idea of the Leafs going after a player like this? Or do you think this team should be taking a completely different approach this offseason? So drop your opinion down in the comments, because I read everything and I really want to know where you stand on this. And if you've been enjoying this kind of honest fan-to-fan breakdown, go ahead and hit like and subscribe, because we're getting really close to 1,300 subscribers, and your support genuinely makes a difference in helping the channel grow and keep bringing these discussions every single day.